Okay, welcome everybody. Excited to be with these colleagues today to talk about summer heat and what's happening out there right now. It's going to be hot in Chicago next week, and it's like that all around at different universities. So we're going to talk this hour about how to beat the enrollment melt that inevitably comes this time of year. So, thank you all for joining us. So, my name is JT Allen. I'm the founder and CEO of myFootpath. myFootpath will tell you a little bit about us, but we focus primarily on stop outs and bringing folks back to universities. I'm joined by some great speakers today. I will pass it kind of down the line to Jim. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Thanks, JT. Jim Bouse, as it says on the slide, former Director of Management, Enrollment Management Technology for the University of Oregon. Aaron.
Hello, everyone. I'm Aaron Lindberg, Director of Admissions at California State University, Northridge, which is in LA. Jana?
Great. And I'm Jana Jaraysi Alvarez. I'm the Director of Admissions at Eastern Washington University, which is a small regional in Cheney, Washington.
Great. So as we go to the next slide, what I thought I would do initially is kind of set up the macro environment that we're seeing, and then really want to get to the panelists for, kind of what they're facing and some of the solutions they're using as it relates to the summer melt. So this is what we're seeing broadly. And so we've heard for many years about the cliff, and it's coming, and it's arrived. So you see it is particularly acute in most states. Some are seeing some growth, but with that growth, competition flourishes, right? So many folks, even where there is a little bit of moderate growth, we're seeing more and more institutions from the so-called red states. They're sending their competitors, sending their staff to recruit out of those states. So it's a tough market, and it's projected to get tighter. There are some bright spots. Spring enrollment was up in some areas, but a lot of dual enrollment, a lot of kind of community college folks in the 4 years. It could be tough sledding here. So this is that macro environment. If you advance to the next slide, this is the kind of what we see. I mean, in probably every conversation we have with a university, and that's that there's enrollment pressure everywhere. So whether it's, the international student that can't get visas, right? It's the value perception of a degree. It's the in-state, out-of-state. How is that occurring? It's competitors. And then where do you go? So certainly, what are those new markets to tap? We are firm believers that stop outs are one of those markets, and we're happy to tell you about that anytime. But it's just all of these areas are really where we're seeing enrollment pressure. So, Jim, let me pass it to you to talk a little bit about, well, what do you do?
Well, I think thanks, JT. That's, what we're seeing. That's where Aaron and Jana and I are really going to get into some later slides here on students overcommitting, budgetary impacts, resident, non-resident challenges, particularly for public institutions, which all of us are here to represent that viewpoint. Need for a sense of belonging. This is one of the three traditional pillars of student retention and student success, of being, academic, financial, and kind of that social and belonging piece. I know Aaron and Jana both done some great work around that area. So I'm looking forward to getting to those here in future slides.
So if we advance to the next slide, this is just a little bit about us. So when we look at stop outs in particular, these are the groups, kind of that, non-traditional population that we go after. just for context for those on the call. So we won't talk too much about it other than, there's a lot. And if you go to the next slide, you can see just how many, 43 million, right? So we're not talking about a few thousand. We're talking about a third of the workforce across the U.S. The 10 million nuns are folks who started, or actually they were admitted, but they never actually enrolled and got started in school. So big market, and we spend kind of all day, sort of talking about that. So let's go to the next slide and really introduce and maybe provide a little bit of context for folks about the institutions, represented here. So Jim, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah. So JT, this was really quickly a story. University of Oregon's not in the greatest of positions, and one of the things I'll hit here, that the other schools are more effective. I think University of Colorado Boulder, but there's kind of been that disinvestment in public education and higher education. You'll see from different legislatures and states and supported, where it's gone from sort of like state funded to state supported, and some schools state located, and become more and more dependent on tuition revenue, and particularly that balance oftentimes between resident, non-resident / international. So you see some of those numbers in University of Oregon story. We're starting to see a lot of, that big state to the south, California, which has more population, and even the state to the north of us, Washington. But that's where, University of Oregon has regional recruiters and out there in different states, California, of course, Colorado, Texas, Illinois. So it's really looking at, where those population bases and schools are doing that. I know one of the states in red there, at least a long time ago, we'll talk to this later too, but University of Alabama at one point, and this is like 15 years ago or even a little more, they had like 35 regional recruiters, out of state regional recruiters. And, they were kind of, I think that was Roger Thompson kind of helping push some of that when he was there. But that's always astounding. So I know, Aaron, you're going to speak to a little bit of this because they're in your backyard. So also in that and the softening of some of those numbers were a lot of things we see, macroeconomic considerations, inflation, a lot of those other things come into play too, have led to budget cuts as some of those tuition dependent dollars have been reduced. And so that, just leads to more challenges and impacts there. Jana?
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Eastern Washington, we're a regional public institution. Our total enrollment combines our undergrad and graduate programs as well. And that number has changed for the years thanks to the cliff. And even more so the importance of how are we viewed in the state of Washington? And so a couple of years ago, we went through kind of a reintroduction of what do we offer within our academics, and becoming the region's polytechnic, meaning that even if you're in the arts or in STEM programs, you have hands-on learning. There's experiential experiences for students, and just recently making it part of the student graduation kind of funnel. That they have to, either through internship, through specific classes, ensure that they're doing something in their field that is just not sitting in a classroom per se. And then noted as the most affordable within the state of Washington, it's a marketing piece and a true piece to it, but we also have a lot of competition with our other public institutions in talking about what does it mean for an education and the value behind that, and how do we share with students and help them understand the financial impact and budgeting and just financial literacy, to understanding how the benefits and the cost. And many of our students are first gen, and so it's a larger conversation, not with the student but with the family as well. So,
All right, Aaron.
Hey everyone, again, California. I'm from California State University, Northridge, which is in the San Fernando Valley of LA County. We are one of the 22 campuses within the California State University system. So again, a very large system. I think the largest public institution system in the world. Our institution is predominantly serves first generation Pell eligible Latinx students, 65-70%. And so that really does play into context of the student experience and campus life as well. Cost of living, of course, everywhere right now, is expensive, but LA is cost of living is quite high. Rent, and then we have as a system 6% tuition increases for the next couple years, as well as all these other increases that students are experiencing. We are, I think, the fourth largest CSU campus, following behind Fullerton, Long Beach, and San Diego State.
Got it. Thank you. So as we go to the next slide, this is really one of the biggest areas, we see in kind of a shift, right, in the market. It's really shifted in the past few years. But Jim, do you want to kind of set the context for this? And I'm sure everybody's got some war stories from
Yeah,
this
I know. We've
point.
got two great admissions directors here that are seeing this challenge in real time, just all the time. But one thing, just to start that off, I think Aaron and Jana, what are you seeing with, or how would you describe in what you're seeing in different overcommitments? I have my own things I've seen too, but in this overcommitment and the delaying of enrollment decisions, and kind of like May 1st is not what it used to be in the admissions world by far. And just what do you see that impact being on your staff too?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and get started, Aaron, if that is okay. It's both ends of the spectrum, and it's so frustrating at times. You have the students who say yes early, but they say yes to multiple institutions. And many institutions, at least in the state of Washington, either have a confirmation fee that they have to pay or deposit fee, or some of my colleagues at other institutions have completely gotten rid of that as a strategy to increase their enrollment. And so numbers are a little bit squishy for many of those who have changed their strategy. And it also doesn't help. We're not helping each other in that cause. And then on the other spectrum, we still have students. I mean, we start in mid-September. Orientation starts in a couple weeks, and we still have students who have not said yes or no. And so a lot of our communication from our staff, it feels repetitive, or through text or through email. We're at the point of, can you give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down? Where are you in your decision-making process? Because we need to know for, internal purposes, set up planning, academic planning as well. And so I've seen this trend over the last few years just increasing, where you have the overcommitters, and then they've committed multiple places and they forget to tell us, or they tell us too late. And then we have students who just haven't said anything. And I'm like, well, how can we help? Where are you stuck? And I think the fear for me personally, you don't want students not to pick anywhere. If you're not going to pick us, pick somewhere
Right.
else, because we want you to continue your education and get into higher education and contribute to your community. And so, how can our staff help with those conversations, even if it's not us, if you don't say yes to Eastern per se? And so, it's been an interesting, and staff have gotten a lot of conversations. They've had to get savvy in how to reach out to students and get a response. And sometimes it's emojis, sometimes it's misspellings in a text, so that they know we're not a robot and we're really trying to talk to them. And so it's been really interesting, crafty times for us to reach students.
Jana, we're facing the same issues that you are, but one added complexity is that we've changed our filing periods. So for spring 2027, typically a spring's filing period began August 1st. This year, the Chancellor's Office has asked all campuses who are offering spring admission to open July 1st. And then we will stay open until October 15th for spring. Now, starting for fall 2027, we actually will open August 1st. In past, we opened October 1st. So now we are open 2 months earlier, and our deadline is extended all the way till May 15th of the following year. So there are literally 6 weeks out of a year where we are not accepting applications or admitting students. That is a drastic change for my team, and for the recruitment team as well. And so, like is stated here, the human capital, the cost of my team, I am very concerned about making sure that they have the bandwidth to kind of encounter this new landscape that we're not used to. One thing in California is that for many, many years, we had too many students. And so we developed these programs, this terminology called impaction, which basically meant we had too many students applying for not enough spaces. So we came up with different higher admission criteria to limit those. Now there are only a handful of campuses that have full campus impaction. We used to be one. We are not any longer. We just have a couple majors that have higher criteria. So that has shifted the whole state of California's thinking into how we all maneuver this in a new way. We are one of those campuses that does not have a deposit fee, which is actually can be problematic because then students just will say yes, but have actually no intent of ever coming. So it's harder for us to determine what that is going to be. We have historical data, of course, yes, but it's still, when you have a campus where you have to have a higher deposit or deposit at all compared to ours, it is, there's win and lose for both of those, right?
Yeah, you touched on that, Aaron. I think that goes into historical models, and we have in the solutions there adjusting your assumptions in your statistical yield models, which usually you'll have something where you're like, what if it yields normal? What if it yields some optimistic thing? And then the very conservative part, where even some of those you might find that you're not even yielding the very conservative lower number because students are attending multiple orientations, registering for courses at multiple institutions too. And like Jana said, the extended communication timeline, and you want to keep that relationship going from the time of the admit deposit all the way through. So you just can't depend on that anymore. You're recruiting all the way through to matriculation now, and it's building that relationship back and forth through that. And sometimes, like Jana said, you'd love to just, can you give me a hard no? I'm being nice about that, but also kind of saying, and when you do, please always keep us in mind if later on you want to transfer or something, we're still here for you. And we'd love to, have you as an eagle or matador or a duck or, sometime in the future. But what's your take on a couple of the other points on the slide here on some of the things like targeting other schools' denials or going to your own wait list or kind of balancing those two things?
Well, I'll jump in. That's just the targeting other schools' denials is a strategy that we used this year, actually. And we basically reached out to students who had an in-progress application around the time denials were being sent from out-of-state schools, but also the University of California system, so that we would say, we're still here. Just you still have an incomplete application. What can we do to help you finish that to cross the line? That has actually been very successful for us. We've actually, while our freshmen are slightly lower, which we expected based on demographic, our transfer numbers are higher this year. And our out-of-state numbers are higher this year, partly because we bought a larger amount of names this year with our marketing partners. So those are things that we're trying to do. We're just trying to do everything. Jen, I don't know. I feel like I'm throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks.
Yeah, that's true. And go ahead, Jenna.
Oh, I was just saying the amount of creativity that we have to come up with year after year it is quite amazing as far as how that happens. Um, and in the state of Washington, there's one institution that has a wait list that we all wait for them to close it because
Yep.
it really impacts our numbers. So I'm like, let's go, let's close this sooner versus than
Right.
later. And so it's about watching other institutions and what they do in order for us to know how are we waiting for that time to see how do our numbers shift, or do we get more yeses now that maybe other students got denied to that institution and are ready to come to ours.
Okay. Emily, let's go to the next slide. I know there's some on this that Jana, I know you've got some really good thoughts about. So on tuition and fiscal budget considerations, et cetera, you see some of the challenges on tuition, cost of living. Aaron mentioned, especially in the LA area. I mean, rents are high everywhere, but some areas more acutely than others. Food and housing insecurity, big, as students are weighing all of these things. And so it's even, watching types of communications you have with your students. Are there indications where you want to make sure that you're proactively reaching out? So you can almost look at like a concierge level type of thing of looking at one of the things is looking at students like this, sort of the Netflix thing, like you watch shows like this. Let's recommend these. So students and families that were in this sort of position last year, before they have to reach out to you, can you kind of get ahead of the game, proactively look at that and reach out to them? And even, it doesn't have to be, oh, I think you're going to be food or housing insecure, but you can just kind of wrap that in some other things and they can pick and choose and see themselves within that communication. So Jana, I know you had some things like basic needs, or, people or students are questioning, I think everything looks good, but how am I going to get somewhere to live? How am I going to afford food while also going to school? So what is, I think you've been doing some interesting stuff at Eastern with that.
Yeah, we have for our first time in college students, we do have a live on requirement. And so we already know that the housing topic and value in talking through that is going to be an important topic to address early on. And so we talk about the value of living on campus and all the different benefits from there. We, of course, have exceptions, as majority of our students do come from Spokane County, so 20, 30 minutes away. And so there's exceptions there for those students, of course, but it's helping them understand and look at a budget and doing that early on. And so within our student affairs division, they've brought on a financial wellness coordinator to help meet with students. And then our financial aid team has created kind of like an outreach subcommittee or subgroup within the office there to reach out to students proactively, especially during orientation, to help them understand these are all your different options, as from financial aid to working on campus to other jobs around the area, to how do you budget and have time to when we start in September for our main fall term. And so there's some critical positions on campus now that if students respond to us and meet them at orientation, they can definitely get that help and support before they even set foot on campus. And recognizing food insecurity and housing insecurity, that really can impact a student's mental health and preparedness to be in the classroom. And so we've developed a robust food pantry on campus, and then hired a few years ago a basic needs coordinator who is not only connected within Cheney, the town, but within Spokane County through different community organizations that can help our students when it comes to bills or places to live when after they're a freshman on campus as well. So really well connected and having some key basic needs fairs on campus in the fall and the spring where community members come on campus and students can walk throughout the day and meet with some key folks to get that additional support, just to reduce some of that stress so that students can be academically prepared and they're present in the classroom and working on their major as well.
We've done something
Thanks.
similar, Jenna, at CSUN, and our centralized location is called the Valera Nest. And the nest stands for a nurturing environment for students to thrive. And it includes our basic needs offices, our food pantry, an open lounge/kitchen area that has food lockers for hot and cold food, which is just terrific. I've actually used it myself just because it's convenient and it's right in the middle of campus. And then we also have what we call Maddie's Closet, which is part of our career center. area for students to get professional clothing to wear to an interview, right? So I think many of us do that type of work. But the basic needs office really helps students with CalFresh and navigating getting those services from the state. It is complex. And I think that students are not only navigating the academic side of what they're doing, going to school, but just trying to live and just trying to make the daily, decisions to be able to get food and housing on a secure, stable environment is such a challenge. And I'm glad you also mentioned mental health because it plays with each other, right? And so we've seen both a large increase in students using our services within the nest, but also within our university counseling center and our disability resource center as well. All three of those areas have seen a vast increase within the past 3 years of students requiring their services.
Yeah, and I think you've all touched on, again, that communication, targeted communication, just letting students and families know ahead of time that these things are there. So if they have that anxiety or they're making decisions about maybe other places financially, can I do this? Or am I going to be supported? So I'm going to be academically successful, taking care of that sort of financial pillar and that academic pillar. And also then you're kind of reaching into some of the belonging and social, which we'll talk about later.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that in that targeting that value proposition too, again, is that communication of, why Eastern, why U of O, why CSUN, and what will your student get here? And that's where that comes in for the tuition and the physical. Is it worth it? Attending school, is that degree worth it? How are we going to prepare you for the future? What are students like me? How did they graduate? Are they going to have a career? Especially in the world of AI, that just becomes extremely important.
And I think there's a lot of pressure with career choice during their selection of a school, right? And just even when you're applying, and for the Cal State Apply, which is our application system for the entire system, when you select a major, it's going to give you information about your career, what you can expect for jobs, salary. Those are being pushed at a federal and state level more and more, which is also in a way having students not having the time to explore as well majors, to do an undeclared and kind of figure out first, the pressure to figure it out first now.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Jana, go ahead.
I was just going to add on to the value proposition of majors and the importance of working on our side, working with our academic partners and working with the departments to help them understand the importance of their websites and keeping those updated with what kind of salary can a student get if they're going to study philosophy, or what kind of job can they get. And so going through and reminding them at least once a year, do that web audit to update your information and to show students what they can study, what they can learn, who can they get connected to, and then even short stories from current students, because peer-to-peer is still a lot more important than hearing from a recruiter sometimes. And so, what are our current students saying about that major and what kind of jobs are they getting when they do graduate from our institution?
Yeah, very important. And we'll hit the next slide, but I think in the world of AI and generative engine optimization, replacing search engine optimization, when students and families start looking for, is this preparing me for a career, et cetera? It's what's that AI kind of ChatGPT or Gemini or others, what's it going to return? And is your school one of those that's present?
Yeah.
All right, resident, non-resident student balance, recruitment challenges. We kind of hit some of these on regional recruiters are everywhere. I even hesitate to think of, Aaron, how many recruiters from different schools across the nation are sitting in the LA basin somewhere.
There are so many in LA. Because so many students either want to go somewhere else from California because they've always lived here and they've never experienced anything else. And I'm not from California, so I've lived here 24 years, but I'm originally from the Midwest. So I can see the lure both ways, right? Getting to experience 4 seasons is probably exciting to some students. But I think some of these challenges are evolving even as we talk about the international student population. And there's new directives coming from the Department of Homeland Security about duration of stay for international students.
And maybe not having enough time to reach that degree, or particularly if it's a degree that might need a little more time or credits or.
Exactly. I mean, an engineering degree that is designed to be 132 units per ABET accreditation. How is a student going to do that seamlessly in 4 years? That means, doing everything in sequence, everything being offered exactly as it needed, and with some extra units either in the semester or in the summer to get there.
And ensuring they're going to have a space in that class. They're going to have a seat in that course they need, so that's, yeah.
Exactly. That's something that's the most concern for us right now. So.
And what we're seeing with our international students is just continued delays to receive their visas and to actually come and start their term with us. And so we've had to, we have an international recruiter that works with them one-on-one, and our numbers aren't too high. They've definitely changed over the last 10 years. But working with students and letting them know that we're here to support them and that if they need to change their term or if we need to adjust any fees, that we're happy to do so, because it's not their fault essentially that things keep getting delayed or their interviews get canceled and they can't come fall but they come winter maybe, and so we work on the back end to reduce some of those barriers for them until we know for sure when they can start, when they can come. But it's a lot of conversations, it's a lot of stress, and uncertainty for many students.
Yeah, we have an increase in admissions deferrals to other terms, and not just for international students. I think we've had an increase for domestic students as well, that things just have changed and they need a little bit more time. And this has actually challenges our relationship with our international recruitment partners or agents in other countries, because they are, they're worried as well about how are my students going to get to the US, problems with interviews and so on. So we're really servicing not only students but other constituents, families with these agents who we have very good relationships, but it's getting taxing, right?
I'm curious of both of you under the solutions column on the slide, particularly on the keeping communications flowing. Are there some things you can speak to in this, in that area, in the solutions area, on what you're doing differently, or maybe some changes you've had to do to just kind of be more proactive and ahead of the game and just keeping that relationship going and not letting students kind of feel, because Jana, are you in quarters or semesters?
We actually have both.
Okay, yeah, U of O
but
too, but
primarily quarters, yes.
Okay, but yeah, you have that where students go into semester schools, they're already in school, and then you even have more of a gap to when they show up on your campus, and they're jealously looking at all their classmates from high school that might be already doing fun things somewhere else or involved with that, and now they're questioning their decision, like, why didn't I go maybe somewhere else? But there's a lot of just quiet time. How do you kind of keep that relationship going?
We've had different strategies over the years, and we're fortunate enough to have an enrollment and communication manager who really helps guide a lot of our campaigns. But we have our email campaigns, and then we do a lot of texting through our staff, through our admission advisors / recruiters, as well as we have a student communication team that does a lot of peer-to-peer. And so not only do we have our traditional like timeline conversations, or we have events or come visit campus type of language, but we have like check-ins, how are you doing, or how are you feeling about your next steps? And then we have, trying to get our students who confirmed early, get them excited and help them discover some of our clubs and organizations, and talking about housing and some short stories from students or videos, things like that. And so we've definitely expanded a lot of our communications throughout the year, and it's a lot of work with some of our colleagues as well. And just getting stories. I think sometimes it's funny. I always joke some of our academic programs, they don't boast enough about themselves. They do some really
Mhm.
cool research, and we always find out about it maybe a little bit later. We're like, can you please tell our office? Because we want to talk about that. This is what students want to know. And so it's a relationship building across campus to get some of that information to throughout each month or every couple of weeks, keep a message going and sharing it out to our future students.
Yeah, I try to tell departments that too. Like, don't be shy about this. I like our music education. They for like over the last decade plus, they've had 100% job placement coming out of that program. I'm like, that's amazing. I mean, somebody's just waiting for that one student who doesn't get a job in the first 6 months or something, but that's incredible. I mean, you should be out there tooting your horn and telling people about that. Yeah,
I hear that so often is that we don't tell our story well enough, right? And that is something that we're trying to learn from. I think our students are our best asset, right? And so our Instagram See Sun Apply. Our student interns are amazing, and the things that they put out there are creative. They're funny. They also speak to our culture as well. So we have a campus that has a lot of squirrels, and so it's our unofficial mascot. And so they're always doing something with the squirrel.
that's
But I
great.
also was sharing a story recently in a marketing meeting regarding a daughter of a friend of ours who turns out she ended up graduating from CSUN in our theater department, and she works for the Academy Museum down in LA. And she was actually asked to do the lighting for the Academy Awards section of Golden, the song Golden. And
Wow.
how would I have, she never told me that. But then now I'm championing her, right? I'm telling our
Yeah,
marketing team, please interview her. Please, let's see if we can highlight her. So this is a young first generation young woman in a field that's dominated by mainly by men. So like this is something we really want to highlight. What an exciting thing. And we've done that with Bad Bunny's Super Bowl concert. There was a taco stand featured that was founded by a CSUN alum. So let's elevate that, right? Those are great stories and something relatable to students and
yeah,
families.
it's that value of the degree. And again, back to the people like me, I can see myself being like this and that and CSUN or EWU or UO help me get there.
But we're
Very
using every
important.
avenue possible, and I think Jana, you spot on. Is it's tiring, right? Like you're trying to do everything with either texting or calling, and so there's multiple areas also doing calling. We have faculty ambassadors in each of our college who are contacting prospective students so that they feel engaged with the college specifically. And we have a provost who has a background in enrollment management, which is terrific because she understands what we're trying to do in our environment and what it is like.
Yeah, and
Those
that's where
partnerships are important.
yeah, not on my footpath plug, but I mean, just all kinds of different vendors that we've had to augment things with to say,
Yeah.
can you take some of this load off so we can focus on this true relationship building and focusing on getting our students across the line to matriculate in the fall. Time to go to the next slide. Aaron, I know this is something both of you have, but Aaron and you in particular have done, I think, some good work in some other presentations on belonging. And again, this fits that pillar of kind of that social tie, that belonging, that sense of affiliation with a group like a lot of times you recruit athletes and they already have like this built-in support thing of like seniors, juniors, sophomores, other freshmen in that team feeling. But then just trying to make that sense of belonging for other students coming in as early as
Right.
possible.
For us, it's also just mission aligned, right? We want to make sure that we are supporting our backyard and the students who
Mhm.
are in the San Fernando Valley, who the majority of our students do commute to our campus. And so housing goes very quickly. It opens in April and it's 2 days later, it's already filled and they have a wait,
Wow.
right? I mean, it's just competitive. But one thing that we've adopted, now this has been several years that we've adopted the technology called near peer.
Mhm.
And it's a platform that students download. It's an app, and they create a profile, and that can include their major and then a variety of different interests. And for CSUN, we added such things as Six Flags Magic Mountain or Universal Studio and Disneyland, things that we know are popular within the LA area. Dodgers, for example, of course. So then what happens is that it links you to suggested other individuals, new students, who have the similar interests that you do. And so they can create affinities with each other. And it doesn't allow and then you can join groups, and they can ask questions like I've seen within the admissions group, students asking about when's the transcript deadline, and they actually answer amongst themselves. We see really great interactions, and it's actually helped with our intent to enroll pipeline. And also, we actually went further, and students who've engaged with near peer, we've retained at a higher rate. Because it starts their belonging before they even possibly step foot on campus. Students can find roommates. We've heard of students finding roommates through this platform, and it's pretty hands-off from the university standpoint. We've set it up, but it's really students engaging one-on-one, and I'll be honest, they really behave themselves on this on this platform. We
No,
don't see,
that's good because you never know when you send something into the wild. And
yeah,
I think
we
that's
don't
a
see.
fear institutions have of kind of letting go of some of that control to really have that
Mhm.
authentic connection between students. And
Yeah, I love hearing the connection or like reading the connections because you don't see inappropriate language. They can't post videos or anything. They can share each other's Instagram, that type of thing. But it's just really authentic conversations, which I think is terrific. All of our, student services are on there as well. And student affairs is very engaged in adding things for their clubs and orgs as well. So
and
that's one
Jana,
thing
I
that's
know,
worked really well for us.
awesome. Jana, I know you've done some good things there with guardians, parents, families, supporters of the student because the cost of education and looking at that is like they're an integral part to helping make that decision, especially first
Mhm.
gen and reaching out and people don't know the questions to ask or even like what
Yeah.
are the next steps or what do we do? So what are some of the things you've done to kind of foster that
Yeah.
relationship or
That we started a few years ago, kind of creating a parent portal or parent kind of newsletter to start sharing a little bit about college and what does it mean to go to college, what to pay attention to when your student starts, and how do you still have that relationship with them. And then within a different office that works closely with us, orientation and family programming, they have a family panel essentially that supports students through orientation time and things like that. But just this past year, we tried a kind of a new strategy where we have a designated person within our office that can help answer questions that parents may have specifically. And so there's an introduction from me, and then introduce the staff member who works with them. And we're excited to see how this continues next year, but we've had some really great engagement and great questions that parents have. And it allows us to let the parents know and guardians know that, hey, we do communicate with your student. We do email them. We do text them. Please give them a nudge too for us to
even if
help
they
with the
don't talk to you and
process.
let you know we
Yeah,
are doing this.
yeah. And so it's and a lot of times now it's not just the student's decision. It's truly a family decision on
Yep.
where they want to go, what they want to do, and how are they going to talk about money and finance it and things like
Yep.
that. So instead of being scared of that helicopter parent, it's more of like, let's invite you into the conversation, invite you into the process so we can do this together.
Yeah. And with time, and that's our next slide, JT, if you want to talk about time, because I know time's critical as that melt and that time frame we're in right now, heading up to
Right.
the end of June.
No, absolutely. And so, I mean, we see this with adult students and with folks we talk with all the time is just planning matters and anything you can do early is usually better, right? As you kind of get in front of it. But it all goes back what I've heard, and I feel like a sponge on the wall here. It's so nice to hear from what these leaders are doing. But what I kind of hear the themes overall are, how do you really articulate that value proposition? How do you really uh, keep articulating it all the way until they start class, right?
Yep.
And so much of that is, okay, what can we do and overlay sort of in the process? So critical in terms of planning. This is also our last slide of the webinar. We've got just a couple minutes left. And so if there's any questions from the audience, would love to address them. If not, I've got many. So anybody out there with a question? I'm looking in the chat. So I'll get it started. So one of the things that I heard is, Aaron, Jana, it really sounds like there's almost like no baseline anymore because you've got shifting demographics, you've got shifting budgets, you've got shifting activities. How do you stay sane?
That's a great question. And I think we know a sense of humor around all of this, and also keeping an eye on the prize and why we all do this, right? Why we love the work that we do. I think that's what motivates me. And the student stories, like my friend's daughter, who just had that was such an amazing success for her, and something that we can champion to others. That's what keeps me and my team. I'll be honest, my team is terrific. And even though it is a lot of work, they are just supportive, and it's just amazing.
That's great. That's great. Jana, what are you doing? Yeah, what are you seeing?
I think I feel like in the field within admissions or enrollment services, you almost have to be ready to be flexible and adaptable to whatever happens.
Yeah.
And the beauty of it is never having a dull day makes the next day even more interesting to see what challenges is going to exist and what do we need to shift or alter. And so, we used to have slow summers. Summer's not slow anymore. And so it
Right.
has
It never
shifted. There's
stops.
no breaks.
No.
There's no breaks.
It never
And so
stops.
it keeps the work interesting. I think that's the beauty of it. And then the student challenges they have and how can we help fix it. So if you're like solution oriented, it's exciting work.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this has been tremendous. I mean, so great to hear from folks like yourselves who are really living it every day. As we just sort of wrap up, Jim, any kind of parting thoughts for the audience here?
Oh, I want, I mentioned sort of the proactive kind of concierge type thing. We all, have some kind of CRM system of something going on. So I think the ideal thing to some of this and summer melt is usually we all wait and then we kind of scramble like, it was the old Roger would always say, like, how can we get some more fuel in the rocket or something like that? Or what can you do? I mean, the best thing to do is you find yourself scrambling at like April or even late March, April, May, June is always to like, where can I start going ahead and planning? Like you said, planning earlier.
Yeah.
And then, as I mentioned earlier, just look at how can you get better and proactive, and you really utilize all that data you've got to say students and families like this, they've asked these kind of questions, they email these, they make phone calls, they find Aaron's text and text him directly and say, I'm going right to the top and asking questions, which happens more than Aaron would like.
Right.
But how can you proactively handle some of that and take some of the load off of your staff too, where then it's reducing phone calls and emails and everything. And again, you can do that in sort of a non too specific, creepy way of just, like putting in at a few other points. But again, like people see, oh, I want to know about that, or that's meaningful to me. And then, of course, trying to look at interactions and other things ahead of time just to see, is somebody starting to drift away, or, before they've made the decision to totally ghost you. Where can you kind of get ahead of that curve? So again, that takes planning. You get to this point right now, it's really keeping communications alive, students involved, fostering those connections and relationships between other students that are coming into the class so they can picture themselves there. But right now it gets late in the game to really make some changes that really have hard effects. But it's mostly maintaining that relationship from this point out.
Yeah. Yeah, and we see it. I mean, so much in our world, certainly is trying to figure out, from an adult perspective, again, what are those steps and how do you kind of push them through the different phases. But I want to give a big thank you to Aaron, to Jana, to Jim for joining me today. Wonderful to be with you. And certainly, if folks out there have questions, you have our emails there on the screen. You can always send your how to beat summer melt suggestions to Aaron and Jana directly. Right? But we thank you for spending a little bit of time with us, and we'll see you on the next one. All right. Thank you, guys.
Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yep.